Hello and welcome to our second video in the series that we're putting together, all about what we do at Venture and uncovering the world of B2B SaaS and the go-to-market strategies that we adopt with many of our clients. We started off last week talking about creating the pain statement, which we did, and hopefully both the blog and the video have helped in that particular journey. Today, Paul and I are going to chat about defining your ideal customer profile. Because before we go out and test our pain thesis, we need to think a little bit about who or which customers we believe our solution is most relevant for. And Paul, lots of people chuck the phrase ideal customer profile around ICP here, there, and anywhere. But the most important word in that phrase for me is ideal. And we don't focus enough on ideal.
Yeah, I've got my theory as to why that is. I think in software, anything's possible, isn't it? So if someone gives you a problem to solve, the temptation is to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And what we end up doing is diluting our core proposition and becoming a bit unruly. So ideal is the type of customer that is going to become an advocate for us, whose pains are the most acute that we can solve, the benefits the highest, our ability to sell to them. We can sell to them quickly, efficiently, cost effectively. We can implement them well. They can get quick value or time to value, and we have a big impact on their organization. That's ICP. That's the core. That's the middle of the dartboard that we should be looking for. Clearly, there's other organizations where we'll meet needs around the side of that, and they will have some unmet needs that we will meet in the future. But for now, for here and now, we need to be very focused on the ones that we can satisfy really quickly and we can make money from.
Yeah, and it's a common pitfall, and indeed we fell into it, didn't we, when we were founders at Fourth Contact, where we'd written what we thought was a brilliant solution that would work for everybody, and we were so excited when the first leads came in, probably from organizations we'd never dreamt that we would ever be able to work with, and we responded to all of them, and we went to all of the meetings, and what we'd created was never a perfect fit. And the bigger the customer, the more they wanted a nuance on the product. And I was running sales, and I used to come back and say, oh, if we build this feature, everyone will buy it. And I was yelling at the product team. And it's a very common pitfall to fall in, because you're so glad somebody has said yes or has shown interest in what you've created, right? And creating software is no different from writing a book or writing a song or painting a photo, painting a picture. It's very personal, and you've created it, and you're just delighted when anybody comes back to you and says, I like it. And therefore you start walking what was your original thesis to please those customers.
And I think some of that's natural, right? Isn't it? Because you're feeling around. You are definitely feeling around. But there has to come a point where you've done enough feeling around. You've got your responses, you've got your feedback, you've got your rock face experience that tells you they look like this. Let's go and get more of these. Now, that's getting that narrow is uncomfortable, as we always talk about being uncomfortably narrow. But unless you've got the resource to sell to everybody in your market, what other way can you do this? What other way can you do this and make money and create shareholder value? Is there another way? Well, for instant gratification, you can hit your number this month by doing stuff outside of that. But in the long run, are you going to be successful by not selling to the right people at the right time? Hard experience would tell us that it just doesn't happen.
And the destination you're trying to get to is repeatable scale, right? It's not, we landed this monster contract with, ABC PLC, that now proves that we are this or with that. It's about repeatable scale. And my obsession is always, where are our next 50 sales going to come from? Because if we do 50 sales at our average order value, we're going to hit target. And so the exercise that we tend to run with the organizations we work with is to get them to kind of close their eyes and think about what that perfect customer looks like. And you gave us some parameters just then in terms of what they're like. So it's organizational size, it's geography. Is it UK? Is it Europe? Is it America? Is it the world? Where are they working? How many employees work there? What particular problems do we perceive they have? What buying personas are in place there? What vertical are they in? That's the absolute perfect fit. And for the benefit of this video, we're just talking about the middle of the dartboard. And would you agree that a sort of perfect place to start would be maybe to look back at customers you've already signed up and are already reporting maximum value and have become great advocates, and thinking, where are the next 50 that look like them?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, generally we've gone through some funding rounds at this point, or at least one, and investors understandably obsess about total addressable market because they want to see you become a unicorn, or they want to see you become, a 10 times return on their money. So they have to obsess about TAM. But we don't want to get sucked along on that same obsession. Yes, TAM is important to us, but it's who can we address? Who can we please today with the product as it is today, and make money that we can reinvest to expand into the wider market. So let's not please everybody. Let's please somebody. And the clues to the somebody is in the data in your customer base and your research. And as you said, or I said, I can't remember, it's things like sales cycle, length of sales cycle, implementation, the effort that's required in implementing it. It's matched to current features. It's customer satisfaction scores. It's their speed to value, their ROI. Those kind of indicators you want to be looking at.
Yeah, and it may be that you want to go and get 20 organizations of a smaller size or a mid-size than you do want to spend all your time going after the monster sale, this sort of horrible disease called big case-itis, which you see on every pipeline that we work with. We might sign the NHS, we might sign the BBC, and you might, and you will in time, but it's focusing on multiple sales of quick and efficient closing. And as you say, getting value back to that customer as fast as possible, so they become advocates of yours. They'll come on your webinar. They'll come on your podcast. They will tell others around them how much they like your product. So it kind of takes me back to the days when we were selling life insurance. And do you remember, it was never about how much value of insurance or how much premium we'd close, because you could get one of our clients to do £10,000 a month into a pension, and therefore it felt like you'd hit your target. But actually, the guys that taught us back in the early days obsessed about lives, didn't they? That you could never do your target from one sale. It was always a combination of the number of sales you've made. In our case, it was 20 lives a month, plus the premium that you got to. So you could never make one sale out of one case. And there's a good analogy there, isn't there?
Yeah. And I was thinking about some of the great companies that we see today. It's very easy to forget where they came from.
Yeah.
Talking about that time back in the day, when we first set up Fourth Contact, everybody had PCs, didn't they?
Yeah.
They all had PCs. And the PC market was about 95% of the computer market. And the other 5% was this company called Apple.
Yeah.
And they had this beautiful machine called an Apple Mac. And instead of having a box under the desk and a screen and a keyboard, it came as one unit, and it was pink or it was green, and it had backlights, and you could see the innards of it. And there was 5% of the population that absolutely loved it. They were like the latter-day vegans. The first thing they said when you met them was, "I've got a Mac." And it was mainly the creatives of this world but they just couldn't stop talking about it, if you remember. And we first got one because our SaaS solution, back then, you had to render in different browsers on different machines, and we had to have one for the engineers to be able to work out how to render on a Mac. And I remember it coming in and thinking, wow, that is amazing. Difficult to work with, but amazing. And now look at it today. So what Steve Jobs said was, I can delight creatives. I can delight people who are designing stuff and making stuff beautiful. And that's all I'm going to focus on. And then from there, it blossomed and it blossomed and it blossomed.
And a very clear vision of who he was for and who he wasn't for. The whole statement of, bring us your odd, bring us your different, that's a lesson that we should learn. We can't be all people to all, all things to all people until we're something to somebody. And we've actually built that foundation of customers, multiple customers who are pleased with, with what we've done and what we've created. I remember you telling me also about the NetSuite story, talking about big organizations, because you were one of the first people in the early days to talk to them.
Funny story, this. So NetSuite, it was about 2004. I think they were founded in 2002 by a chap called Zach Nelson. And Zach had worked for McAfee. So he knew Ben White at Message Labs because they'd had a tie-up in the Message Labs solution, a technical, they were part of the technical solution. Anyway, he set up NetSuite, and it was basically an ERP delivered as a service against Oracle and IBM. That was big implementations. And it was very early days. And he was coming, they'd come into the UK, and he was very interested in our customer base. And we were very interested in his hosting, because he was going to build out the infrastructure in Europe, and we wanted them to host in our data center. God knows why they ever would, but we tried. And part of our leverage in the negotiation was that we had 3,000 customers who are SMEs and mid-market, and NetSuite was very much in those days focused on SMEs and mid-market. So we said, okay, why don't we try this out? We'll introduce you to a couple of our customers. Bearing in mind, they had less than 50 customers at that time, and maybe 2 million in revenue, certainly not anymore. And the sales guy, it was an amazing chap, a real dog with a bone. He would sell anything to anybody, and he was all over this. Yeah, give us what you got, give us what you got. But Zach, to give him his dues, had him on a really tight leash, and he said, what our product is really good at today is inventory management and supply chain management. I want only leads that are manufacturing or distribution, maybe some wholesale. So I said, well, we've got all of these different customers. Please just give us organizations that look like this and their business model is like this. So yeah, fair enough. So we gave him the first one, which was electrical distribution company, quite a big company. And he flew over from California. We went into the board meeting. There was myself from Star, the board, from the client, from the customer, and then there was Zach and his sales guy from NetSuite. Now, Zach did a demonstration, and they didn't have a demo account at this stage, so he had to demo a live customer and apologize all the way through. Bearing in mind, this meeting was for about 3 hours. Halfway through, his phone chirped, and he went, "Oh, I'm really sorry, guys. You're going to have to excuse me for half an hour. It's my one-to-one with Larry." We're going, Larry. Anyway, it turns out that Larry Ellison was his angel investor. So he went off into a side room and had his one-to-one with Larry, came back half an hour later, finished the demonstration, and it closed, and they got 100 licenses. So this was 4 times bigger than their next biggest deal. And it was lovely. And he took us out for posh fish and chips in Covent Garden, and we got him drunk. And but 12 years later, a mere 12 years later, that business had $1 billion of revenue across all verticals, all horizontals, and it sold for $9 billion to Oracle.
Yeah.
So what did I learn from that? This guy was ruthless. His sales guys wanted sales. He wanted the right type of sales.
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure that his product could delight the right people, and that they would become advocates, and then they could build out and out in ripples. And fair play to him. That's what they did.
Yeah. So even though he was given access to hundreds of customers, they just handpicked the ones for whom they think they would be perfect for. And I think the reason why some software businesses are reluctant to do that is that they're worried that they'll never get back to closing the customers on the outside of the dartboard rather than the ones in the bullseye. And the answer is you will, but just not now. It's we talk a lot about horizon mapping in the product, where in the first horizon it's what the product can do today. Can it do this? No, not at the moment. Well, can it do that? Because I need it to do that. No, not at the moment. What it does today is this. And if you're selling to the right customers that you've done your research on, they're in the middle of the dartboard, that will be enough for now. And you can then horizon map out your product to say that these other features, if all of our other customers want us to build the features, and that's a big caveat, we will build it in the second drop or the third drop or whatever. But for now, this is what it does. The danger is that you get salespeople going in, and I was certainly one of them, promising the earth on the product. Oh, yes, it'll do this. Oh, yes, it'll do that. Oh, and it just doesn't sound believable after a while, because it doesn't do it today. You've overpromised your customer. They're getting frustrated that it doesn't do what they bought it for. And this is why getting uncomfortably narrow is really important. Get the customers on board that you can delight quickly, and we'll go back and serve those other ones when we've hit our target, when we've got more investment, when we can build other features, and we can value stack those features and build them in a certain period of time. So I think people are against doing this because they feel they're sort of turning their back on valuable market. But it brings me back to your blog you wrote recently about mining and about mining for gold. And I just thought the relevance of that and what it means in SaaS is extremely important lesson to learn. Can you just quickly reiterate that analysis?
So as you know, I spent some time working in mining, and in mining there's a huge amount of expense that goes into recovering whatever your ore is, your minerals are. In my case, it was gold. So the whole process starts much like we talked about last time. Is what is this thing that you're looking for? And we talked about in SaaS, it's pain. Pain is your gold. You find the pain that you can solve, you can make money from it. In gold, it's rock that contains a particularly precious metal. So in mining, you do a huge amount of research, and you drill boreholes from the surface, and you map out the geology, what you can't see. You do seismic surveys and such like, and you get a picture of what is underground. And eventually, after billions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars, you get to the rock face. And where I worked, that was 3 kilometers underground, and it was very hot and very harsh and very dangerous. But then when you get onto that rock, in order for it to be economic, you have to take just what is gold bearing, extract only that, because anything else you extract is waste. You're still going to have to haul it to the surface. You're still going to have to crush it. You're still going to treat it. You're still going to extract the gold from it. But some of it's going to have nothing in it, and it still costs you the same. You've still put people in harm's way to get this rock that has nothing in it. So you have to be extremely disciplined and be uncomfortably narrow. You only mine what's got gold in it, and if that means that people are working in spaces that are only a meter high or a meter and a bit high, so be it. It's uncomfortable, but if you do anything else, you're wasting money. You're not delivering what you said you would do. And in SaaS, I think it's the same. Find your pain, define your pain, and only execute against that pain. If someone tells you there's another pain, that's fine. That's research. Put that in on the list. And if someone else says they've got the same pain that person, that we're not meeting yet has got, it goes on the list, and a business case builds. And eventually we go, okay, we know what we need to invest to solve that issue. We can go back, we can develop a product, and we can broaden our seam, if you like, make more money from the same customers. But if a customer says, I've got this pain, and you say, oh, great, we'll solve it, all you're doing is creating the most likely outcome is you're creating a scalability problem down the line. This is all going to be done on research and business case. So know what you're solving, only solve for that. If your research tells you there's something adjacent that you can solve for, do the business case, come back, build the machinery, and go and extract that as well. But don't do it just because the customer wants it.
Yeah. So we're asking people to sit down, close their eyes, think of their perfect bullseye customer, either one they've taken on already or whoever they feel their solution is absolutely perfect for. Think about the size of that organization, the scale of it, the location of it, the geography of it, the particular pains that we've established in the goal that we've established in the previous place. We know these businesses are suffering from this particular problem. Think deeply about that. And then the job is to do your research of what other companies in the same vertical or very similar verticals of the same size, and it might be that your ambition is to sell to companies with thousands of employees, but for now, just the companies of the same size with the same problems. By the way, the personas you sold to previously, if your ideal customer, will know the persona that you're selling to, in your new space. That people, it's a very close, very close world. It's a very small world. They'll know that area. It's not to say, though, is it, that if someone comes to you from outside of your bullseye, you're not going to respond to them, because if they come in and say, look, I read your content, your user guide about blah, 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 and I think that applies to me and I'd like to learn more about it, please come to me. It's not you're going to say to your sales team, don't respond. What we're saying here is that the marketing budget you've got has to be dedicated to that very focused group of customers that will get you the next 50 sales in quick order.
Yeah, and most businesses are cash constrained, aren't they?
Yeah.
So that's even more reason to do it. If you go back to that Zach Nelson and NetSuite example, his backer was Larry Ellison, one of the richest men in the world. So he potentially had fairly unlimited resources, but he still knew, he couldn't go and spray. For him, it was about getting it right for these people. And then we'll go after the next people. Then we'll go after the next people. So whilst he had reasonably unlimited resource, he still had the discipline, which gave him the scale to get to $1 billion of recurring revenue. Most companies won't have the resources that he had. So it's even more important just to stick to those that are going to make you money.
Brilliant. In a later chapter and later video, we're going to talk about building the market map and building the Facebook of those ideal customers. But before we do that, the next critical step is we need to test our thesis. Okay, so we built our thesis. We've now defined who we believe these customers are. It's manufacturing companies of 500 employees with 3 or more depots that have got an incumbent HR director that are feeling these particular challenges. Whatever that is, keep it laser focused. We know there are X hundred of them in the UK. We know they've got their problems. The next step, and in the next video, we'll take the thesis that we've drawn and agreed internally for the audience we've now defined and test that thesis to make sure that what we believe is exactly the same as what's happening in real life.
Yeah. And the other dimension is the persona that we're going to speak to. Yeah. So we need to just test ourselves internally very clearly question whether we have the right persona. And, you and I have had some experience with our clients where the persona, when we've worked with the internal team and we've really pushed at that persona, we've kind of uncovered some headwinds or some reasons why that persona maybe doesn't have the clout, or it's not always in their best interest to buy this software. But we've been able to sort of push around the boardroom table or push up in the hierarchy of a business and through some questioning of the internal team, identify that there's actually some other personas here that might be a better persona to sell to. So if we're going to go and test our thesis, let's make sure, one, it's the right type of company, it's the ICP, but really question whether your current persona is the actual persona that is going to make this buying decision, or whether they're an influencer in this buying decision. And again, that's an internal exercise of a good hard look at whether this is really the right job title that we're selling to. Should we be actually selling to someone adjacent or above? So yeah, that's a good exercise. And then once those things are done, we go test the thesis with those people.
Absolutely. And it's a great exercise to draw up a boardroom table on a whiteboard in your office, draw in all the different personas around their table, think deeply about your solution and the value it brings, and think about whether you bring value to any other personas, any other C or D suite personas around that table. So your product may be about efficiency in one area, and you think that's who your buying persona is, but efficiency is something that the CEO will be very interested in, the COO will be very interested in, the CFO will be interested in, because it may be reducing time and reducing costs. So, you know, in the same exercise as thinking about your ideal customer profile, remember it's on two layers: organizational and buying persona. And when we come on to talk next about testing your thesis, I think that'll evidence itself even further. Brilliant. That's it for now. Take care. See you soon.
Laters.